is war and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Welcome back. Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and Kingsley Manuel is here this hour.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here this morning.
Let's get started from the local scene, and yeah, we understand the president of the Nigerian School Sports Federation, led by Labusi Temitope, was in the office of Shehu Diko, the head of the National Sports Commission, and the message had to do with the development of infrastructure, galvanizing interest of students to participate in sports across the country. And Shehu Diko is all in support of the effort of the Nigerian School Sports Federation.
I think for me, it's a good one at this point in time, right step in the right direction. We've been talking about school sport development. I think if you take a look at it, there have been a decline when it has to do with school sports in the country for some years now, and that has also brought setback when it has to do with unearthing talents in the country. So for me, I think this initiative is a good one, taking a look at the fact that the School Sport Federation are towing this direction to make sure that they revive school sports, of course, once again in the country. I think for me it's actually a good one to go at this point in time. And talking about Shehu Diko, who actually has the eyes at this point for sports development. He has set up so many plans, and from what we're seeing, the man is actually very much optimistic on making sure that it changed the narrative of sports down here in the country. I think for him, embracing this one is a good one. I think with this, if this can be stabilized going forward, definitely, of course, we'll be able to churn out talents in so many federations, because when you catch them young, it gives them that ability for them to get themselves intact and train, and also keep themselves in shape for future competitions. You talk about countries like China, Japan, that always dominates in the Olympic Games. These athletes start from small, and in the situation where you train them when they are young, it gives them that opportunity to be able to compete against any opponents in the world. So for me, I think it's a good one. We'll just see how this particular partnership will go going forward. Partnership between the
and of course Nigerian Sports Federation aim at fostering an improved relationship, not just relationship itself, but improving infrastructure, and of course encouraging greater participation among students of Nigeria in sports. Let's hope this will see improve progress between the two bodies, National Sports Commission and the Nigerian School Sports Federation. Only last Tuesday, we saw Shehu Diko, the head of the National Sports Commission, in a budget defense in the House of Representatives, and he talked about having 100 mini stadiums across Nigeria in the course of his administration. Does this look like a realizable objective, Kingsley? 100 mini stadiums across Nigeria?
If you ask me, that's huge, and that, of course, will definitely take a lot of money, at this point in time. 100 mini stadium, is it achievable? I think if all hands are on deck, definitely they can achieve this one, based on the, the duration at which is going to be, the head of the National Sports, Commission. I think for me, something that they can achieve if they actually put their hands together and see how they can possibly work with the federal government, and as well, see how to get sponsors, because I think it's going to be a huge one on the federal government alone to see how they can, facilitate all of this. I think at this point in time, they also need people who can also come in and inject money into this particular project. 100 mini stadium in the country, I think for me is a good one. It would definitely, of course, give this so many states in the country that opportunity for them to see where, of course, to train. And I think for me, this 100 mini stadium will be coming with the best of facilities, where the athletes, of course, have to train and get themselves, of course, in shape, for future competition. So I think it's something they can achieve. It's actually it's a big dream, if you ask me, but if they can possibly do all they can, trying to see how they can, get corporate bodies and work hand in hand with the federal government, I think they can possibly achieve it. It's not going to be in the space of 1 year. I think it's something that's going to take maybe years, to achieve. I think Shehu Diko is actually coming with the fact that he wants to develop sport. I think earlier when he came, he said that Nigerians should take their eyes away from, winning medals at the Olympic game, that what he wants at this point in time is to put up that foundation. And I think for me, this is one of it. So we should just look forward and see how all of this will materialize at the end of the day.
Well, let's go to boxing now quickly. And talking about boxing reminds me that Ife Ajagba, of course, one of Nigeria's heavyweight boxers, has been ranked as one of the top 6 boxers to watch out for in the year 2025. Kingsley, we understand Ife Ajagba is preparing for international boxing federation heavyweight title bout against his counterpart from Kodak, and this is promising to be a very tough one. You remember if Ajagba, who has had about 20 wins and about 14 of them coming via technical knockout, should be one of the top heavyweight boxers to watch out for, in at least the first 6 to watch out for this year.
Yeah, definitely. If Ajagba is a promising boxer, and from what he has done so far, over the years, I think, of course, he's that man everyone should be looking out for this year, talking about 2025, when it has to do with boxing. I think the man has really stepped up his game when you take a look at, how he has performed so far. About 20 wins, for himself, 14 knockouts, and just 1 defeat in his whole career. I think for me, that's a very impressive start, for him. And this year, I think he also wants to take it higher. First, he's going to fight, Bankole. That's on February 22nd.
Martin Bankole, right?
Yeah, Bankole. And for me, I think that, of course, will be a bout that will take him up higher. That will take him higher. If
it's actually an eliminator bout. If he gets this one, then he moves up. And yes, of course, Bankole moves down. And so it promises to be a very thrilling one. And when you look at the image of somebody who has lost only 1 fight in 20, then...
Yeah, of course, but I think he needs to take things higher at this point in time. I think this bout against Bankole will take him, to that limelight where he'll probably be in the lips of everyone at this point in time. And I think going into this one, if he's able, of course, to take down Bankole, on this particular one, he will, of course, he will have that chance of facing Daniel Dubois, for the IBF, belt at this point in time.
That's if Daniel Dubois takes out Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
Parker has to eliminate Dubois, or Dubois has to eliminate Parker to see what chances if Ajagba could have in line of this. That's
what I think as well. If both boxers eventually meet, that would definitely, improve the pedigree of Ife Ajagba, of course, as a boxer at this point in time. Facing such a boxer like Daniel Dubois, probably he gets a victory. I think that would definitely, of course, put him on the line. And of course, the more you win bigger bouts, the more, of course, your value increase. You can definitely, of course, could charge, more in any boxing bout. And I think for me, this is the time for Ife Ajagba to take his chance.
Well, now let's go to tennis. The Australian Open is heating up, and of course, tennis faithful around the world are all eyes on the Australian Open, which is the very first Grand Slam of the year. And there was a shocker a few hours ago, Kingsley. Daniel Medvedev could have been was dumped out of the competition. Daniel Medvedev, the Russian, everybody looked up to, at least to be one of the new generation tennis players, now crashing out in as early as the 2nd or 3rd round of the Australian Open.
Very disappointing. I actually saw this coming, especially in his last game, where, of course, he was so frustrated to the fact that he has to, of course, use his racket to smash the camera.
That was in the 2nd round game?
Yes. I saw this coming. The man was already frustrated.
Very frustrated.
Yeah, very, very frustrated already. And I think it's as a result of his performance. Performance wasn't really good. He was almost eliminated in that 2nd round. But thank God he was able to bounce back and hold his own. And now we're now seeing what is really made up of this point in time. That's to say, Daniel Medvedev wasn't really that prepared for this particular one. Seeing a qualifier, and this man, this is his first time playing at the Australian Open and coming up to beat Daniel Medvedev, who has been here for several seasons. I think for me, it's a very disappointing one for Daniel Medvedev. He's one tennis player that everyone, of course, has been looking forward to step up his game, see how to put, of course, his name in that limelight where everyone, of course, will want to talk about anytime, any day. But Daniel Medvedev hasn't really been there. You only see him at some point, coming up maybe in some kind of tournaments and getting to the final. But at the end of the day, he hardly get the results, at this point in time. So for me, it's really, really disappointing seeing a qualifier, someone who is making his debut at the Australian Open, beating, a very, very renowned tennis player. Very, very disappointing for Daniel Medvedev.
Very disappointing for Daniel Medvedev. Daniel Medvedev is ranked number 5 and seated number 5 at the Australian Open. And he's now been taken out by someone who is ranked way down 121. Leonard Tien from United States of America has taken out Daniel Medvedev in nearly 5 hours in a 5-setter at the Australian Open. Whoa, that's quite a very difficult one. And talking about Leonard Tien and Kingsley, is ranked number 121 in the world. Yeah. We saw him play his very first game at the Australian Open and won. And and now this is his second game at the Australian Open and has won. All of them going into 5-setters. In the first match, he won by 5 sets. Now another 5 set. Well, he's just 19 years of age, so you think that yes, he has all the strength in the world to go and burn on the tennis court.
Of course, he has all the strength. 19 years of age, of course, you should expect him to have that high level of energy to be able to stay that long, of course, on the court, to play. And that's one thing about young players like this, that's what we say when you're young, you definitely need to use your strength. And that's the same message going to the likes of Yannick Sinner, the likes of Carlos Alcaraz as well. You have to utilize your strength at this point in time. This is where you have the strength to be able to challenge your opponent for a very long time. And the young man actually utilizes his chances. And that really pays off, at the end of the day. I think he's also one of the tennis players we should be looking forward to at this point in time. Taking a big name like Daniel Medvedev actually is a huge statement of his intent for him. That to say that he has what it takes to be able to go far in this particular competition. And we'll just see how this level of energy will actually lead him, at this point in time.
Big shock at the Australian Open, world number 5, taken out by world number 121. Leonard Tien from the United States of America beating world number 5, Daniel Medvedev, at the second round of the Australian Open. So there will be no more Daniel Medvedev at this edition, but Corentin Mouser has to be very, very careful because his next opponent of Leonard Tien, and he too could be shocked at the third round of the Australian Open. And but talking about shock reminds me there's nothing like that for Yannick Sinner, the world number 1, because he took out his opponent Christian Skulbit in another 4-setter. We saw Dylan Fries too not being shocked because he had an easy win over Christian Garin in his second round match at the Australian Open. Alex de Minaur is into the third round as well. Lorenzo Musetti in the third round, and we have Holger Rune in the third round as well. Kingsley, then Medvedev will wonder why he's not joining these likes of Rune, Yannick Sinner, and of course Berrettini to move into the third round.
Definitely, of course, I think he's going to go back home to think about, this particular performance because so abysmal, especially right from the second round of the competition. He actually showed that, he doesn't really have what it takes, his energy level, his playing pattern was not that good enough, getting down even to the third round one where he was being actually defeated by the young tennis player. For me, I think he's going to go back to take a look at how he was able to perform in this one and see how to put himself in shape at this point in time. Seeing the big names like the Yannick Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, you talk about Holger Rune, and the rest of them moving forward in the competition, and he's been left out. I think for me, it's really a disappointing one at this point in time. But at some point, I think he should just see how to get himself in shape and look forward to bounce back.
Let's hope that Daniel Medvedev will bounce back any moment soon. After the Australian Open, there's yet another Grand Slam coming up in just about 3 months or so. But for now, let's go see what happened at the WTA, that is in the women's version at the Australian Open. We saw a situation where Americans, Danielle Collins, didn't have plenty of trouble because she had to face an opponent ranked number 195, but she made a good game of it because she dispatched her opponent, and so 10 seed Danielle Collins could not be shocked the same way we saw Daniel Medvedev from a 195 ranked tennis player from Australia, distance Ajava. Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 2, is in good shape as well, Kingsley.
I think she's the world number 1.
The world number 1, sorry.
Yeah. For me, I think, yes, as Sabalenka has shown that much, tenacity, she's shown that, much, energy at this point in time to be able to, hold her own strong. She started the season in a very impressive fashion, winning the title in Brisbane, and that's the same energy level we're seeing in the Australian Open. So for me, she's looking very unstoppable at this point in time, and that's why, of course, everyone has actually targeted to be the favorite for this one. But there are still other names, on ground. Iga Swiatek still fighting, Coco Gauff she's fighting. So we'll just see how far she'll be able to go, and if she'll be able to take down these other ladies. I think for me, if you take a look at it, Aryna Sabalenka is in a very, very good shape. She had a very, ease. Her performance in that one was with ease, and she was able, of course, to dispatch her opponents.
In the first round fixture, we saw Ons Jabeur from Tunisia, Africa, having issues with her nose, a breathing problem, but it didn't seem to manifest in the second round match a few hours ago, because we saw her go past Camila Osorio, 7-5, 6-3, a commanding win for the Tunisian at the Australian Open.
Yeah, I'm so impressed. I'm happy for Ons Jabeur. We hope she continues this level of progress. I think Africans are all rooting for her at this point in time to go far, probably to the final of this particular one. It will be, of course, a huge relief, for Ons Jabeur herself, and as well as Africans who are supporting her, to see how she can get a Grand Slam for herself. It was really an impressive game for her in that particular encounter. We just hope, she goes far in this particular one.
Emma Raducanu is going far. She's gone past her opponent in the second round, and it's surprising. It looks easy for her. Amanda Kirozova was beaten 6-3, 7-5. Straight win for Emma Raducanu.
I think for me, impressive one for Emma Raducanu. I think her coming back this time has actually shown much energy. Though her first game was actually a scrappy win, but bouncing back, of course, in the second round, I think it has actually been an impressive one for Emma Raducanu. Everyone, of course, is looking up to her at this point, especially the British fans. They're also looking at what she can be able to bring to the table. It's been a long time Emma Raducanu put smiles on the faces of her fans. The question is, how far can she go in this one? Can she probably get all the way to the semi-final? Because it's been a long time. We've not seen her getting to the quarter-final stage of any tournament. But we hope that probably this season might be a good one for Emma Raducanu.
Talking about this season being a good one, that's what happened to Beatriz Hamda from Brazil. Beatriz Meyer beat her opponent, and I'd say straight set win 6-2, 6-3, and it looks easy. Daniel Collins is into the next round as well. Madison Keys of the United States of America is into the third round of the Australian Open. Kingsley, Iga Swiatek, so much is being expected from her. She made it look easy, 6-love, 6-3 against Rebecca Stramkova in her feature in the second round.
Not relenting at all, of course, when she understands that she still has the world #1 status to fight for at this point in time. I think for me, that alone is a very huge, source of inspiration for Iga Swiatek at this point in time. Looking at the fact that, her rival, Aryna Sabalenka, is not relenting, then she has to pull up everything she can to make sure she stands tall at this point in time. And that's what she did, in that particular encounter. A lot, of course, from a lot of expectation from Iga Swiatek. And I hope that, this season she's going to take it down to the very end. And we just hope that we do not see any upsets, at this point. I think the competition is not getting very much stiff, looking at the fact that Aryna Sabalenka is not relenting. So she herself as well wants to take everything down to the very end, and we'll see how far she'll be able to go in this one.
My eyes definitely in the next 30 minutes or so will go across to the Australian Open, because one big fixture comes up. Lenas Fernandez from Canada will be up against Coco Gauff in just about 30 minutes or so from now. This is a must-watch fixture, Kingsley.
Definitely a must-watch. Lena Fernandez, of course, I think she's been on the limelight ever since she put up that impressive performance. I think that was in 2021 with Emma Raducanu. She's also been one tennis player everyone, of course, has been talking about, against Coco Gauff, who's also flying high, at the moment. I think that promises to be an exciting encounter, and I would just hope, to see who get that one at the end of the day.
Talking about fixtures to watch out for at the Australian Open today, Novak Djokovic as well in the next 30 minutes should be in action against Tomas Manchak from the Czech Republic. And this is a must watch, I must tell you, because we've seen Novak Djokovic just a struggle, but as usual, he will drop the first set, then send you packing in the second and in the third. Can this be the fate of Tomas Manchak against Novak Djokovic in just about 30 minutes from now?
I think for me, let us see what comes up. Djokovic, for me, so far hasn't really done bad with, of course, his new coach talking about Andy Murray. I think the partnership has really yielded fruit, on the court. So for me, I think it might probably not be an easy one, but for Djokovic, I think he has what it takes, to be able to take this one down to the very end.
Well, we'll take a look at it much later on our program, Sports Extraordinary. The results of the fixtures at the Australian Open will be very common on that edition at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. But for now, we'll take a break. When we return from a break, we'll go to basketball. There's a lot happening in the NBA and in football. Interesting result last night in Europe, especially in Premier League, where we saw Manchester United wait for the last 6 minutes not to be disgraced at Old Trafford. The Copa del Rey is very interesting as well. Real Madrid is showing class and seeing whether they can catch up with FC Barcelona in the later fixtures. When we return for a break, all of the details will be yours. Stay with us.
From the lands across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk, and of course, this is the second half of the program, and we have to move on. We told you how the National Sports Commission is in full support of the Nigerian Sports Federation, and they're looking forward to establishing infrastructure across Nigeria with a 100 mini stadium expected in the course of the budget year. Meanwhile, let's get to basketball now. Kingsley, Indiana Pacers in the early hours of this morning took out Detroit Pistons by 111 points to 100 points.
Impressive results, of course, for the Pacers. I think they actually put up a very impressive one from that particular encounter. We saw some of their key players, coming up with very impressive results. The likes of Tona was able to rack up about 28 points in that game. Not for also forgetting Siakam as well. Was very impressive for them. 26 points, of course, he got, and that was how they were able to get Detroit Pistons. Detroit Pistons are another struggling side we've seen so far this season. And we hope, of course, they will see how to bounce back from this defeat.
There was sunset in Phoenix in early hours of this morning because they beat Washington Wizards by 130 points to 123 points. Phoenix Suns in a home victory there.
Yeah, for me, impressive one for Phoenix Suns. Just like, of course, we've been talking about them for some time. They've been up and down. We've not really seen that much, consistency from the Phoenix Suns. I think if you take a look at it, they have some quality players down there, likes of Kai Harvin. Of course, has been one man that has also been so instrumental for them. But we've not really seen that spark from them, and we hope that they'll be able to build on this particular victory.
Talking about spark, there was plenty of thunder in Oklahoma City in the early hours of this morning because they took out Cleveland Cavaliers 134 points to 114 points. Thunder everywhere in the Oklahoma.
Impressive one there for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Taking out the Cavaliers, if we take a look at it, I think for me that was a very, very spirited performance, from them. If we take a look at it, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they've been so fantastic this season. But losing that particular one for me, I think was an impressive one. And they have a certain Gideon Alexander who got about 40 points in that game, of course, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the man was very, very impressive, in that game. Not forgetting the likes of Dotto had about 22 points for that particular one. I think for me it was a very, very highly spirited performance, of course, from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so far so good. If you take a look at it in their conference, they've not done so bad. I think they're one of the side, of course, we should be looking forward to this season in the NBA.
The Blazers from Portland, they actually trailed because Cleveland Cavaliers beat them by 113 points to 88. What's going on with the Portland Blazers? They could not make up to 90 points in this fixture, and LA Clippers travel all the way from Los Angeles, to beating them by 118 points.
I think for me, if you take a look at the Trailblazers, they've not been that fantastic since the season goes started. I don't know what really is the problem. Maybe the players, of course, not really living up to expectation in the court. I think the person that actually tried in that game was Patton, who has about 23 points in that particular encounter. And the coming up Atten, of course, actually came up with about 16 points. The Trailblazers, they've been so poor this season, and we hope they actually find a way to bounce back going forward.
Talking about the last fixture we saw in the early hours of this morning, Sacramento's are indeed kings because they blasted the Rockets of Houston by 132 points to 127 points. Good way to win at home. Sacramento Kings 132 and the Houston Rockets deflated by 127 points.
Impressive one, of course, for the Kings. We hope that they actually stabilize this victory. 132 for them in that particular encounter. I think for me was an impressive performance. We hope they actually see how to stabilize their performance. The likes of Murray has about 18 points, and one man who actually did so well, of course, for them in the night was DeRozan. Has about 33 points, of course, in that encounter, and we hope they try to see how to maintain this winning mentality. Not winning today and tomorrow you're dropping in terms of form. We just hope that Sacramento will be able to build on this particular performance.
Okay, let's quickly now go to football and enough of basketball now. And the National League is getting ready for match day 6. Abia Comets are up against Lagos. There will be Smart City against Ijele. Then Ede will take on Warri Wolves. Rovers of Calabar are up against Madiba. Kingsley, the National League match day 6 fixture between First Bank and Gateway FC promises to be thrilling as well. But in Group C, we see Gombe United take on Wiki Tourist later this afternoon. Sokoto United will up against Mighty Jets. Zamfara will be up against Barrow FC. Fixtures in the Nigerian National League spread across 4 groups.
For me,
that's 4 conferences.
Yeah, 4 conferences, and I think for me it's a good one. We're seeing the Nigerian National League back at this point in time. we're going to see some, high level of football being played, especially for some traditional side, the likes of Gombe, the likes of Wiki Torres, of course, down there. These are sides that a lot of person will be expecting a lot, from at this point in time. And don't forget, there are also new, in the injection of teams, the likes of the Akpabio team, Akpabio FC, who also are also in the mix at this point in time. I think it's going to be a lovely one. The Nigerian National League has been one side that have been so consistent, producing teams to the Nigerian Premier Football League.
Talk about the Nigerian National League producing their teams for the Premier League. There's a player from Wachuku who played for the Nigerian. He played in National League for Shun. Is now a player with 3SC of Ibadan.
I think for me, yes, it's a good one. Seeing that the fact that, of course, not only producing team, they're also producing players at this point in time is a good one. I think if you take a look at the NNL, there are players who are so passionate, who are very willing, to get themselves, to the limelight, and that's why you always see them, trying to see how they can bring themselves to the top. I think last season was so impressive. We saw what Beyond Limits, of course, did, despite the fact that they were not allowed to get promotion to the Nigerian Premier Football League and some other teams as well. So I think for me, there are a lot of talent, in the Nigerian National League. We just hope that, of course, this particular season, the best team will definitely get the promotion.
Away from the National League now, let's go across to the continent of Africa, where Enyimba International is airborne as we speak. They're expected to arrive Cairo for a fixture against Zamalek of Egypt any moment soon today. That fixture comes up on Sunday. Kinsley, Enyimba up against Zamalek this weekend in a very crunch tie. Yes, you went to say crunch in the sense of at least getting them some respectable position, not being last on the group. Can Enyimba, earn some respect? If they win this fixture, they will not qualify for the group stage, do I say the quarterfinal stage of the CAF Confederations Cup? But at least they will finish third, in the group.
Yeah, they will finish third in the group, but for me, it's not satisfactory at all. Well, they should be able, of course, to qualify from that particular group. We understand the group is a tough group, a group where you have Zamalek, a group where you have Al-Masry of Egypt, you have Black Bulls, of Mozambique as well. At least Enyimba should find their way to be able to qualify. This is, for me, I think that nothing.
You don't have any chance anymore because as it stands now, it looks like Al-Masry and of course Zamalek, in fact, are qualifiers from that group because they would, there's no way. Yes, it is football, but there's no way the two of them will lose at home. They have to. While Al-Masry will take Bull this weekend, they've already qualified, so to say. So for Bull, they don't have any chance.
Yeah.
But for me, I think Enyimba must ensure that they are at least better than Bull in that group and come third. And that way, for this season, we will not have any Nigerian team at the quarterfinal stage of the CAF Confederations Cup.
So sad at this point in time. I think we had about 4 of them this season when the season goes started. We have the likes of Remo Stars, we have Enugu Rangers, I think as a point we have Rivers United as well, and the likes of I think Rivers United, Rainbow Stars, and Enyimba, were all in the continent, but all of them crashed out. The worst was Rainbow Stars, who even crashed out in the first round for the competition. So sad that we're having this poor performance, of course, in the continent at this point in time. But for Enyimba Football Club, like I said, I don't think they have a chance at this point. And the worst is the fact that they're not even playing at home. Playing Zamalek away from home is actually not something, of course, they can deal with at this point in time. We'll just wish them the best of luck. I think go in there, get the experience, come back and see how they can focus in the Nigerian Professional Football League. Away
from the Nigerian Professional Football League and, of course, a continental tie between Enyimba and Zamalek of Egypt. Let's look at what has happened in Europe because we're running out of time. Kinsley, the Premier League action we saw last night, Manchester United 15th on the Premier League table up against the last team on the table, 20th place Southampton. And up till about 84 minutes of that fixture, it was Southampton 1, Manchester United no goal. But one man, Amad Diallo, I think, yes, an African if you ask me, moved in. The young lad turned around, scored the first, scored the second, and scored the third. A hat-trick in 6 minutes. And ensure that fans at Old Trafford didn't have to take a look at Amorim and the bunch of players that were on showcase last night.
For me, a good one, and for me, I didn't actually for
Good one for Amad Diallo, and maybe a bad one for Manchester United.
bad one for Manchester United. How can you be struggling with against a whooping Southampton?
Who has won only one match?
Yes.
They've won only one match. I think they drew 3 and lost all of their last 19 fixtures.
Southampton, they've been so bad this season, and you're struggling with them to the 80th minutes of that game.
84th minute.
84th minutes. If not the brilliance of Amad Diallo, probably Manchester United would have probably drawn that particular encounter, and that would have been very, very disappointing. And that tells you that, you know, Amorim still have a lot of work to do. If not from what Amad Diallo, of course, has been doing this season, Manchester United, they would have really been down, you know, at this point in time. But it's good of a thing that at least they were able to take all 3 points back home, being able to elevate themselves, you know, on the league table. It's actually a good one at this point, but they cannot continue like this. You know, if they continue like this, it might be difficult for them. I understand there are still games, you know, to be played. So I think Manchester United should be able to step up that game. Whenever they meet big teams, yes, they see them pulling up that strength. Whenever they meet teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, you see them want to show up. But, you know, when it comes to play smaller teams like this, you see them, you know, trying to, you know, not being able to get what they want, you know, at the end of the day. But for me, it was the side of Manchester United was a bit disappointing. But thank God for Amad Diallo, who lived up to the, you know, billing and was able to salvage that 3 points for them.
Well, salvage 3 points for Manchester United. It was last night at Old Trafford. Now let's look at the other fixture. Ipswich Town playing at home had Brighton to contend with. Brighton beat them by 2-0, and I think that's a good result for Brighton as they move up on the ladder in the Premier League table. Let's look at Copa del Rey. Last night there was action in the Copa del Rey. Kingsley, did you see Real Madrid in action? They beat their opponent by 5-2, and that's a big result for them at the Copa del Rey.
Yes, of course, it was a very huge relief, you know, for Ancelotti and his men from what they've been through. You know, Celta Vigo. And they had a little bit of struggle in that encounter. I don't know what's really happening. Probably maybe psychologically, they are not really stable at this point, sad to say, because I don't think they have any reason to be struggling in any game. They have that, you know, squad depth. When you talk about, you know, Real Madrid at this point in time, they have players like, you know, Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, Jude Bellingham, of course, you could mention at this point in time. I think for me, Real Madrid struggling at this moment. Something probably is wrong at the moment, and I think Ancelotti should look for a way, of course, to be able to put the team in order, because I don't see them, you know, struggling. Seeing them struggling this way means that something is actually wrong. And so what happened, of course, in the Spanish Cup final where they lost to Barcelona in a very abysmal way. So we just hope that, you know, Ancelotti will actually look for, you know, the solution and put this, you know, Real Madrid side in shape.
Well, let's go across to action that's coming up today in the German Bundesliga. Eintracht Frankfurt up against Borussia Dortmund. A must-watch if you're a follower of the German Bundesliga.
Yeah, a must-watch, of course, I say, to say at this point in time. And for me, we're going to see what happens. Borussia Dortmund, another side, of course, that, you know, we expect a lot of, you know, a lot, you know, from this time. But for me, I think they've been dangling so far in the German Bundesliga. We expect them, of course, to live up to expectation because they have